It's your golden hour. You slow down time. I learned a very important lesson from this guy. He's a coworker of mine, and he's maybe listening right now because he listened to it last time. He's like, and he's Peruvian and he's very succinct. He's very straightforward. He's very, direct, in other words. And he was like, "Oh, I listened to your podcast this morning."
Okay.
And that's all he said. And then I was like, I'm curious about that. I'm curious why that was presented to me. And like I've grown past the point where I'm like, oh, that it was to hurt me, or it was because it was something about me. I was like, I'm curious about that. And what was put forth to me from the universe was that there are monitoring energies all around us, right? Like
Mhm.
it can be a quote unquote friend, it can be a quote unquote enemy, it can be somebody at the store, it can be somebody in traffic, right? That just tests your patience just to see how you're gonna react, right?
Right.
This particular monitoring energy, homie, I love you. Like he's just the best. I've worked with him for 4 years. He's an outstanding person. But it was really giving, monitoring. You shine. Discussed some ways to bump up our energetic hygiene. And that was going to be a little something that we touched on here today. Yeah, and I feel like if I would have never started my energetic hygiene practices, I never would have been able to recognize like this and that's what's going on, like if I wasn't grounded and if I wasn't shielding for years now and then taking that into account, like finding my own energetic signature and what I feel like, right? I wouldn't be able to discern that little hint of like, what is that? That sparks
Right.
that curiosity, and that curiosity will always lead you to an answer, like always, you know? So
Hmm.
yeah. I know you had said you like to take baths. So like what do you like to put in there? Do you have like a little potion or do you just do it intuitively? Like whatever go in there.
Most everything I do is more intuitively than anything. And it's funny because I used to pick on myself a lot because everybody has these like rituals that they do and like these specific routines that are like structured in such a way. And I was like, how come I can't, and it's actually a lesson that I've been learning. But yeah, like everything I do is usually intuitive to that moment. So there isn't just one way that I'll do something. I'll like whatever it is that I'm trying to cleanse, like I'll go through I don't know, I'll just sit there and I'll think, okay, like what comes to mind that's going to help with this. Or like I'll look through my stuff to see like, oh, okay, that's what I need and that's what I need. My baths are usually pretty typical. I'll whatever crystals are calling me, I'll put those up and then I'll get different candles, usually different colors for whatever it is that I'm needing. And then like I'll put oils in it, usually always lavender and always eucalyptus because those are extremely calming, but then also protective. And then cedarwood. Cedarwood usually always goes in there because it's one of the most protective herbs or not herbs, oils. Um, and that's like the typical, but yeah, usually I don't have a complete structure for things. And I've been finding that that's actually just like, that's just how I work. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's okay for me to be that way. Cause like,
The gift.
so I keep thinking that I need to create some sort of routine. So I wake up early and I do this and I do that. And it's like, why do you have to do this? Because everybody else does? And I keep thinking like, well, yeah, like that's how everybody else succeeds is, they do this and then they do this and okay, but how are you not succeeding with doing what you're doing? I don't know. And like I have to ask myself that question and I look at it and I'm just like, well, have you accomplished the things that you needed to accomplish that like were non-negotiables? Well, yeah. So then what's the problem? And so I'm learning to allow myself to just be in this flow of doing things as I'm called to do them rather than like thinking that I have to do it because this is what other people do. Um, I'm an organized mess and I love it. So I'm learning that structure doesn't necessarily have to be something that's so routine for me. And so that's where, yeah, the intuitive, so cleansing and shielding and all that kind of stuff, it honestly just kind of comes in the moment um as I'm preparing for whatever it is that I'm doing or leaving whatever it is that I'm leaving. Um and now that it's winter time, there's, different ways for me to be able to do things because I can't go sit out in the grass.
Yeah, for sure.
I can go sit out in the snow, but I'm a whiny baby and I don't like to be wet or cold. So,
Right, right. Not
yeah,
quite as welcoming as a nice lush grass, but I feel like
yeah,
snow can be good in its own way, you know?
yeah. I absolutely love to sit outside the window and watch it. Like one of my favorites is like when it's super bright outside and it's like lightly snowing, but it doesn't. Let's see. Phew, excuse me.
Food. Mhm.
Phew, excuse me. It doesn't like fall, it like dances. And that's one of my favorite things is I kind of just like will meditate on the snow and just watch it fall. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, mine too. I love it too. I think one of my favorite parts about the snow and like the sun that you're talking about, I call it spirits dancing, where like, it's a really cold day and there's like the tiny little ice crystals all over everything and the wind will
Mhm.
blow or something and you see that little swirl, the little bling. I love that. We had that this past week and I just adore it. So, but yeah, I really resonate with what you're talking about as far as like not wanting to follow anyone's structure. I feel that's kind of like coming from the path that we both seem to sort of be around. I don't know if that really ties into the shift I think we've been experiencing since this new moon in Aquarius. I know, like, I heard someone mention that the downloads started coming in November, but I've honestly been feeling this since November of 2022. I remember, I don't know if I was talking to you, but like I went on vacation, right? The first vacation I'd had in 6 years because being a restaurant owner, you don't get a vacation. You are there literally all the time. So I went on
Yeah.
vacation and I came back on my first day, and one of my employees walked in. I was like, "How was your vacation?" And I just started bawling like Kim Kardashian, like face because the grief I felt in the fact that I'm a human being and I'm supposed to be enjoying my life, right? Yet, because of survival, because I need a roof over my head, because I'm a Libra and I love nice things, because I need, food to eat and gas from my car to get back to work and like all these things that are just so frenzied and overwhelming that I couldn't thoroughly enjoy just
Yeah.
being in the moment, no matter how much meditation I did, no matter what I did on that vacation. I was miserable the whole time. It was just like this
Right.
period of adjustment. And that's when I started calling the lifestyle I have now into form, into being and going through like all these like upgrades and lessons and attaining this knowledge because it's like yeah, you can sit around and not have a job and maybe have some money, but like you're still going to be in the same spot. if you can't enjoy it, if you don't learn how to identify your desire and use that
Yeah.
as your compass, you're still not going to be able to enjoy it. So I feel
Right.
that that's like this huge shift that's happening. There's a lot of us, you included. I think you said like 6 years ago was when you started, like you haven't worked, I call it muggle jobs, everybody. Like you haven't worked a muggle job
Mhm.
since then. And there's so many of us that were called to it and nobody understood. Like our parents didn't understand, our spouses didn't understand, our kids didn't understand. It's just like, I just can't do this anymore. And what we were ultimately doing was forming a new foundation for us to stand upon when the one that we currently hold up, we are the foundation, right, of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Because without people to work, capitalism would just crumble. And that's literally what's happening. We're being
Well, it's
called
supposed to
from,
happen,
well,
but
yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's great. But I think it's really epic. Like we're being called from our place of where we are supporting this system that does not serve us. And meanwhile, we took like our left foot, we like wiggled our left toe out, right? And we're like, okay,
Mhm.
okay, I got it. And like using that left toe to like just scrape up sand, right? And like scrape up
Yeah.
to build this other foundation that is the new foundation for
Right.
everyone to stand up, and it doesn't, it's a non-victimizing, non exploitative foundation, if you will, you know? And I feel like
Yeah.
that's what Aquarius is all about.
It's your
So when you started that, how did you feel? Like what called you to not want to work a muggle job anymore? Like what was that like?
Mostly because I didn't want to be combative, and I felt like I was always combative with the coworkers that I had, because I am like, I believe in work ethic. I believe in, efficiency. And when I don't see that happening, I can get on a high horse and be extremely judged. I mean, I'm a fucking
Oh,
Libra
same.
too,
I got
you
you.
know?
Yeah, I
So
feel you. I totally feel you.
yeah,
100%.
and I'm
Like,
all
just get out
about
of the fucking
justice,
way and let
and
me do it, right? It's like,
the
yeah.
scales have to be, even. And I am tired of doing three people's jobs when I'm only supposed to be doing mine.
Exactly.
And it didn't matter where I worked, it was always like that, because people needed people to work, so they didn't really care who they were hiring, as long as they had a warm body that was moving and doing something. It was good enough. Even if other people were doing more work than others. And yeah, I couldn't handle that. And then I'm also not somebody that just like sits there and like goes and tattles on people and all that kind of stuff. So um the last job that I had, like, there was this crazy tweaker that I worked with, and and she would like steal a
Love a
bunch of
crazy
shit and
tweakers.
like
Stealing all the
yeah, I mean,
silverware, the
I
toilet
used to
paper.
be one, so whatever. I know how they
No, it
work.
takes one to know one. I know. I feel you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the way that she would work, it would piss me off, and like she would like give out her number like to all of the customers, and like I don't know, it was just she was just super inappropriate, and like it just drove me nuts. And then like as they started missing stuff, like, and it's so
Was this
stupid.
a
It was like,
restaurant? I'm just curious. Was this a
yeah,
restaurant? Okay, okay.
yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So it was a breakfast restaurant, and like,
Mhm.
like whenever we would make pancakes, we'd give out the little syrup cups, right? Well, she would like steal boxes of those, right? Well, they started recognizing that these things were coming up missing, and I was like, I know exactly who's taking it, but obviously I'm not like trying to go and rat on people, like get a camera and watch your
I'll
shit,
call her.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, instead what happened was that this girl decided to go and tell him it was me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm telling the boss, like,
Not the
finally, I
same.
was just like, okay, you know what? No, if this girl's gonna go and dump all of this stuff on me, you want to know what's really going on? And I went and told them what's really going on, and they wouldn't change a thing. So I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I
Still
can't
said
do
that you
this.
stole the syrup?
Well, no, the manager finally ended up believing that I didn't steal it, but they wouldn't do anything about this girl. Like they wouldn't fire her, they wouldn't put her on like super like a probation or anything. They just were like, "Well, you guys need to be a little bit more careful and no more taking stuff and blah blah blah." And like she wouldn't listen that this girl was crazy. And yeah, it's closed, dude. You can't go out. You can't go out there. He just ran into the
Jumped
window.
into the window. Well, yeah, because just like you're saying, like they don't care as long as there is a body, as long as they can keep,
Yeah.
as long as they can keep the register going and keep the
Yep.
doors open. And because I run a restaurant, I know, and I actually, this is part of what my book Elemental Industry was about, was shifting the restaurant mindset, right? To one, not necessarily more spiritual, but just more reasonable of the human condition, right? And it's really difficult to do. And the
Mm-hmm.
CEO was like not having it at all. I got my ass jumped, and there was this whole like showdown about it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And here we are.
Yeah.
I'm still
Yeah.
not
No,
doing that.
I ended up like telling him like, you know what, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. I'm gonna
Did you
give my
have
2 weeks.
something else lined up that you wanted to do, like as of a spiritual nature or of an independent nature?
Not at this time. No, not
Or
at this time.
how did that
At this
blossom?
time I was still married, and I just kind of wanted to stay at home and focus on school because I was also going to graphic design school.
Mhm.
And and yeah, and I was married, and so I had a step kid, and so I just kind of wanted to stay at home and do my work and take care of the house and take care of the kid and just, do the whole domestic thing. Which I mean, I found out I absolutely love being domesticated, which is great sometimes, but yeah.
The
So on
routine of
my
it
own
gets to me after a
life.
while. I cannot live the same day over and over again with the pancakes and the fucking soccer practice. And like, look, I had three boys.
Oh, I didn't, it wasn't like that.
I had like four
Yeah, I
boys,
wasn't
my
that
son, and
domestic.
then three stepkids. And I loved it. But like, it got to a point where I was just like, it was me, Xanax, coffee, and Adderall, baby, running the whole show. Okay. And
Right.
then I was like, this is so bad for me, you guys. I wanted to be the mom, but geez, this is hard
Yeah.
doing it this way,
No, and
Anyway,
that's honestly why I think that God has not given me a child. Like I've been the stepmom a few times and I loved it, but no, I think that's why I've not had a child is because I love my freedom. I absolutely need my freedom, and routine is not something that I can do. I've tried and I get super bored, and then I just get depressed and I want to go away.
yeah, no, I
So,
totally feel you. Totally feel you
yeah.
on that one. But I feel like
But yeah.
probably now I'm more emotionally mature than I used to be, because in the past, I would have seen that as like a problem with my husband or a problem with the kids, or like, it's because the hot water heater broke last week. You know what I mean? Like it would be a problem outside of me. I feel now that I'm more emotionally equipped to handle
Right.
things like that, because now I would be like, okay, so what is this showing me about myself? Like
Right.
what is this situation showing me about what I need to learn and what I need to level up on, right?
Right.
So for what it's worth, what was the point when you said like I'm not gonna look back? like what made you get to that point, or what prompted you to get to that point, like, oh, I'm never going back to Muggle life again, like Muggle jobs. Like I'm not doing that.
Um, well, I mean, when I had my awakening, honestly, in 2017, I fell off a 10-foot loft and broke my left side, which if we don't know energies, like this
You're
for the
feminine, yeah.
audience, feminine is left side, masculine is right side. I've always been in my masculine, and then when I felt and broke everything on my left side, I had a massive awakening. And basically since then I've been being shown and taught how to just kind of be in my feminine and learn how to allow life to flow and to receive, and not try to work and control everything so hard. So at first, like throughout the healing is when I started to wake up and realize that I was in a marriage that wasn't mine, and that needed to go away. I was married to a woman. I was in a very long cycle of basically just like taking on partners that needed to be healed and not understanding that I was a healer and not understanding that that's what I was doing. But yeah, like this woman I absolutely just adored and loved. She was my best friend. And then I wanted to give her the love that I wanted, because like she was so
Yeah,
broken,
yeah.
and she like just her life was never the way that like she wanted it, and she just like, yeah, so I just wanted to love her, and I just wanted to give her the love that I desired, and so
You
I
are for
did.
sure in your masculine. That is like I'm falling in love with you. That that's like no, but I mean it's super. I mean it's not in like a and that's masculine, but like oh my God, it's so divine masculine of you. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
really yeah, beautiful.
Well, and I mean, it took 4 years of being in this relationship for me to, yeah, 4 years, and then this giant fall, which basically, I can't move, I can't walk, I can't do anything for myself. I couldn't wipe my own ass, like shit was, I mean, I could wipe my own ass. That was luckily the one thing she didn't have to do, but like she
I
would
know what
have
you
to help me
mean. Yeah.
bathe. And yeah, it was humiliating. And basically I just got sat down with myself and like, look, you don't get to move, you don't get to run, you don't get to do anything. You have to sit here and you have to be taken care of for
Receive.
once,
Yeah.
and trying to let her take care of me was like one of the hardest things, because I'm like, this
Probably
isn't her job.
excruciating.
Like
Yeah.
she shouldn't be doing this. And then I started going through just this like, and we both attended church and all that kind of stuff, and so I was still like very much in my religion. And I started hearing voices, like that inner voice inside, and basically started telling me like everything that I think is real is not real. Like everything is a lie, and things are about to crumble. And it was like the the walls of Jericho, everything just came crashing down. And like it was yeah, it was crazy. And then I was like, I can't work for regular people because I just can't be around regular people. I can't be around the muggles. It's so hard for me to be around the muggles because even in my Christian world, like I couldn't be around just regular people. Like if you didn't want
And
to
you know
talk
what it
about
is?
Jesus, I didn't I didn't
Well,
want to talk.
I feel like a lot of it, a lot of times we are like, oh, and I don't want people to get this twisted, anybody that's listening to this, and that's why I'm jumping in right here. Because when we say like, oh, go to my muggle job or do this, or like, oh, I can't work for regular people, like the thing is there's nothing wrong with regular people. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're doing their thing, they're having their experience, they're playing their game over here. The problem is that me having to mask in front of the regular people, the quote unquote muggles. That's where the problem for me anyway.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is what I can go to work for 5 hours. A lot of my employees work like 13-hour shifts. I can go to work for 5 hours and come home and have to like keep reset for 3 before I can do anything because I'm so exhausted from fighting my own authenticity all day, every day.
Exactly.
And
And
that should be a testament to show anybody who feels that way, especially empaths. You get a lot of empaths. You say, God, going to Walmart wears me out. That's because you're powerful, bitch. That's
yeah.
because you're strong, period. That's what that means. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of us see it as a weakness. And really, you're just that tired because you've been fighting your own strength all day, period.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. Like I could never be myself, you know, and that was just really that was really hard. And then yeah, I started like, okay, well, how can I do this? I see people creating their own life by doing all kinds of different things. And so I started looking into like different MLMs and all that kind of stuff. And I really wanted to start taking better care of myself. And so I got involved with this company called Purium, and I was gonna like, you know, work for them and try to figure that out. Well, as I started doing that and started cleaning my system out, that's when like I really started to align to myself and understand that like I'm just not quite living my truth. I'm not quite living my authentic self. And, you know, I would get on, oh, and I was doing doTERRA at the time as well. And so I had to do a lot of like social media videos. Well, anytime that I would get on, I would obviously advocate for the LBGT, like, I'm a lesbian, right? I'm married to a woman, so I'd have to
Right.
advocate. But every single time that I got on and I would talk about me being gay, like my body would hurt. Like it felt it I didn't understand what was going on and I'm like, why is this happening? You know,
Do
like
you think that was
every
because you were not gay or because you just didn't like that label and that paradigm, like that idea of being a lesbian at that time that people would
No,
have
it was
put on you?
because it was 100% because I wasn't. And I was like trying to make myself be something that I wasn't. And I'm just like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Like I don't understand what's happening. And so I had talked to my coach and I'm like, I don't understand this. Like every single time that I get on and I start talking about this, like I start feeling like I'm lying. And she was just like, well, she was like, obviously it's coming up for a reason, you know, and also at this point, like I should possibly mention that like I was in basically a sexless marriage as well. Like we hadn't been intimate with each other. Like our intimacy came in other ways. But yeah, we hadn't really had any sort of intimacy since the very beginning of our relationship. And then every once in a while, it was when we were super wasted. You know what I mean? So there was
Yeah.
never any sort of like authentic intimacy going on between us. And that was a huge red flag for me because I'm extremely sexual and you
Yeah.
know, I love to give affection and so that was really big for me and recognizing that and then just like you know like as much as I adore this person like I feel like I'm stealing somebody else's wife. You know what I mean? And I was just like, this doesn't feel right to me. None of it feels right to me. And you know, like there's a lot more to the marriage as well that like I'm not really going to get into just because like I don't want to point out any of like the negatives or anything like that. I just want to point out the fact that I realized that I wasn't in my authentic self. I wasn't living my own truth, that I really did crave a man, that my soul craved a man. And this is also the time where I started dreaming and like this man kept showing up in my dreams and I didn't know who he was, but there was somebody that kept calling and like saying, "Hey, like I need you to like wake the fuck up now, and it was really weird because I hadn't like had dreams about a man, and it wasn't sexual or anything like that. It was just this man kept coming to me, and you know, yeah. So really, like, that whole thing just kind of started to unfold, and then I was like, okay, well, I'm really creative, so I'm gonna start making art. I'm gonna start making jewelry. So I just started like making jewelry and selling jewelry to at least try to make an income. It didn't go very far. But yeah, then I just kind of like went and found myself and tried to figure out who I was. Because I ended up getting the divorce and everything, and went across the United States, and just yeah, I just went and I just was. I called it my Jesus mission. I just wanted to go and explore and just like love
Awesome.
on people
Yeah,
that I
same.
had
I've been
met.
there.
Yeah, like there was all these different people on Facebook that I had met, and I'm just like, I'm free of whatever constraints I put on myself and whatever limitations I put on myself. So why don't I just like go? And with the break, I had also gotten like workman's comp and all that kind of stuff. And so I had money, not a whole lot of money, but like enough that I could at least like just go do something and take care of myself still at the same time. So yeah, I like went and met some people on Facebook, and just explored and like figured out who I was. And then my best friend ended up dying while I was on the verge of like, either I was going to go hike the Appalachian Trail, I was going to go to Canada, or I was going to go to India. One of those three, and I was just waiting on my passport, and none of all that stuff ended up falling through, and my best friend died. And I'm like 3,000 miles away from my best friend. So I was like, what do I do? So I went through this whole unraveling and like grieving process within 3 days, and the whole time like I could just hear him saying, you got to get home, it's time to go home. And I'm just like, why did you want, like, no. And the thing is like, when I left Idaho, I had no intention whatsoever of ever going back. But my best friend Toph, he was the only one that could ever get me to come home anytime that I had left. Like anytime that I was just running for myself or anything, like he was the only one that could call and say like, hey, it's time. Just come home. Like you belong here. It's just time to come home. So him dying was like, to me, I was pissed because I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? You had to die to bring me home? Couldn't you have just called and said that I'm messing up? Like that, like I'm running from myself or whatever it is. Like, did you really have to die? Um, and so I went through this like huge like guilt and like grieving process of him dying, because like, well, what if I was home? If I was home, could I have stopped this, and blah blah blah. And it took a really long time to figure that out. But then I spent 3 weeks up in the woods after this, and he basically just started talking to me and like telling me that like, hey, like, people need you. And when I mean people need you, they need the real you. And it's time for you to stop hiding. It's time for you to stop like pretending to be something that you're not. And it's time for you to actually like just step up and be who you're supposed to be. And so I started creating this coaching class of helping people heal. It's called Beauty and Grace. And it's basically just taking people through this 7-week course of stepping into Christ consciousness. And yeah, so that's really where I started figuring out how to create my own like source of income. It didn't pop off or anything like that, because I don't think that I was ready. So instead I started trying to find like just fun jobs. And like I had my hair license because I'm a cosmetologist. So I was like, well, I can do stuff with that, and like do wedding hair and all that kind of stuff, and like parties. But then I decided I wanted to be a DJ. So I was like, I'm
Fucking
gonna be a
plot
DJ.
twist. I love this. Okay.
Right? Like I just started finding like just different creative jobs that I could do that wasn't draining and that I could do on my own, that I didn't have to have like necessarily a boss. Obviously, I would have to have a boss because whoever, like when
The
I was
currency
DJing,
exchange is coming from is your
yeah,
boss. Yeah.
exactly. But I just didn't want just a regular job. I was also like a security guard for the bar that I was the DJ at as well. So it was, yeah, it was just like this whole period of time of just trying to find something different and something that I could use my creative brain and, you know, also be able to use my intuitive um aspect too, because like I mean, especially when it came to DJing, like you have to be able to read a crowd, and
Oh yeah.
if you want to
Oh yeah.
if you want to
I've
keep a
had
party going,
DJs
like
that could like pull the crowd off of me, right? Like play a banger with high beats per minute, pull the crowd off my bar. They could see that I was like overwhelmed. They pull the crowd off my bar, and then I make eye contact with them. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go again. And then they drop the beats per minute and I get flooded again. It's crazy.
yep,
It's
yeah,
crazy. If you ever are in that environment, check it out. Like just watch how
yep,
people go back and forth. Yeah, it's nuts.
yep.
It's nuts.
Well, and I loved it. Like I absolutely loved it. But then I started drinking too much, and yeah,
As one does,
I
when you're
yeah,
in a
and
bar all
then
the time. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
well, and then me and one of the bartenders, we were both singers, so we both were like, dude, we need to bring karaoke into the bar. So we ended up creating karaoke, like, yeah, bringing that back in, and then I really started drinking way too much. And after about a year and a half of doing that, I was just like, I can't do this anymore, and so I gave it up. And then um I just decided I just wanted to do hair, and so I just did hair for a while, which still let me be in the creative mode and everything. And I had a boss, but my boss was like not a regular boss. I've known him for 26, 27 years. So he was the owner of the establishment, but he wasn't like a micromanager or anything like that. So so yeah, that's really where like stepping out of just the regular traditional jobs started. And then it was last year that I really decided that, like, no, it's time to just start doing everything on my own. And I went down and watched some of my friends' animals. And like, I was just going down there because I was also homeless. And I was like, dude, that gives me a place to stay for a few days and I can get out of town. Awesome. That's perfect. So I went down, stayed there. When they got back, they gave me money for it. And I was like, I wasn't trying to do this for money. And they're like, yeah, you took care of our house. We came back and like it was as if you weren't even here, and like just no, you did us a favor. And I was like, okay, well, cool. And then I was hanging out with my person, I guess. I was hanging out with Jacob. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, I wonder if I could create this into a job. And he's like, if anybody can do it, you could. So I was like, okay. So I decided to like make this post on Facebook of like, hey, if anybody has like animals that they don't want to take with them, but they also want to leave at their house, hire me and I will come watch your house and I'll come watch your animals. And yeah, all of a sudden I got like text after text of like, hey, I need you, hey, I need you. And then it just kind of became a career from there. And so now that's what I do is I travel around to people's houses and I take care of their animals. And yeah, like next week I have two jobs down in Boise, which is a city 2 hours away. And yeah, and then of course I do all my other stuff, like I do readings and I make stuff. I
Perfume,
make
you make books, you make
yeah,
jewelry. just all this awesome creative stuff. And what I think
Yeah.
is really cool about it, and like what's an important takeaway for people here is, like for me, for example, I was really confused for a long time. Like I thought it was just like, okay, I'm working a muggle job. No, I'm not gonna work a muggle job, but it doesn't work like that. Like it's
Yeah.
not just like you're clocking in on somebody's time clock, like trudging along one day, and then the next day you're like dancing footloose and fancy free across the tulips. Like it's just not like that. But what it is like is a journey inward to
Mhm.
find the most beautiful parts of yourself and the most desirable parts of yourself through holding and loving the undesirable, right? And
Yeah.
when you find these beautiful parts of yourself that deserve and need attention, you let them bloom, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's something really important for people to know is like, it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna be a tarot card reader now. Peace out, world. It's like,
No, that was definitely something that kept calling and calling. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And then I was like, okay, I guess I need to try. And so then I just started reading for myself and I was like, wow, okay, I guess there is something here. And so then I started doing it for a couple other people and they're like, oh my God, you have a gift. I was like, what do I do with this? And I was still, very skeptical too because of what I grew up with, that reading cards is witchcraft and hey, you're working for the devil.
right.
And so, like
You
there
know
was,
what? You would think it makes it easier, but it adds an extra layer of trauma on top of it when your family is very active in the church and very quote unquote Christian, but yet they use kitchen magic. They put intentions into certain foods for certain things. They use plant magic. They use regular cards. They just use playing cards. They don't even need a major arcana. They got the playing cards. That's all they need. Right. And they're doing all this stuff around you growing up, and it's normal to you, but then it's not normal. Like the vibe is not normal, but like we're gonna pretend that like we're Christian and devout over here. And it just messed me all up, like 10 different
yeah.
kinds of fucked up. Like
Well,
I
and
had to
just,
go
I
on a
mean, just the
lunch.
hypocrisy and just the fakeness too, because you see how everyone is Sunday morning, and
Right,
then throughout the entire week, like they're completely different people,
right.
and so, like it definitely messed with me, especially so when I left and I went on this trip across the United States, like I said, I literally called it my Jesus mission. Like I was literally just going out and being Jesus. Like I was just going and loving people, no matter who they were, no matter their story. I went hitchhiking and I ended up meeting, I ended up meeting some of the most amazing people and just got to share Jesus and just got to be Jesus, which is a huge thing that like I've said this since I was a baby, like since I was a little kid. I want to be Jesus and I want to marry Jesus.
Nice.
That's like my
Freaky.
mission in life. you know.
No, I did the same thing. I didn't call it, it was more like a Buddha mission. Because which same difference.
Yeah.
I renounced everything I had. I left everything I had. My nice jewelry and my nice home furnishings I gave away in the months leading up to this. Like I went to a really good bartender friend of mine at the time, and I'm like, here you go. I literally gave her a bag of like Mignon Faget that I've been collecting for like 20 years, here, this
Right.
is yours now, and then for a whole year, I did not have a dollar to my name. I lived intentionally, purposefully, without a dollar to my name. No deodorant,
Right.
no tampons, no shoes. I had some dollar store flip-flops with the flowers on them, they were white and orange. And look how happy I am talking about them, right? Um, like it was just, it's literally the most beautiful, magical time of my whole entire life. Do I love having a stacked bank account? Yes. Was that also the best time of my life when I didn't have a doctor's note? Yes. Yes, it was, without a doubt. Because I got to experience what you're talking about. Like, just I, all I have to give is here, right? It was really just like a way to like dig down deep and get over a lot of codependent behavior and a lot of worth issue and conditioning, was to
Mhm.
just not have anything but my
Yep.
presence. And it was very, very powerful. Is it for everyone?
Mhm.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like a lot of people that like,
Well,
but
I mean, I think it definitely has to do with the mindset, but like, because some people, they're not going in with the intention of like freeing themselves from those
well, yeah,
things,
that's what I
like,
was gonna say.
so
They're not miserable enough. I was so absolutely miserable and
yeah,
terribly just living in a very, very low vibrational, low frequency space. And I don't want to say desperate, but I was open and willing to sacrifice whatever I had to get
yeah.
to any place that wasn't there. And I just said, just take me where I need to go. And that's
Yeah.
what happened.